What is up, party people? Welcome, welcome, welcome to tonight's show, Sips with Chef. I am super honored and humbled to be with you guys this evening, and I apologize for being a minute late. We want to acknowledge that there is a real commitment to making sure that we start the show on time, right, as we advertise for it. But your girl is drinking a gallon of water every day, let me tell y'all, and this has been a real challenge for me. And I may have to run to the bathroom while I'm on the show. So I just want to kind of like prepare y'all for that, because I'm really committed that I do not have any accidents while I am on the show. So give me some hearts, some 100s. Let me know you're here. Let me know you're tuned in. Let me know you guys are ready for this conversation. But before I bring the guest out, I just want to sort of give you guys a background of relatedness, tell you guys what Sips with Chef is, why we're here, why I'm doing this, right? Why have these type of conversations every month? And I do that because a lot of times we have new viewers, and we want to make sure that they understand it's not just us wasting time for an hour. There really is a commitment to being a contribution. And when I say us, I include myself, any of the people that take on being a guest, and then you, the viewer, right? We all have a commitment to like really changing people's lives via our testimonies and via what we share in our experiences. So initially, Sips with Chef was something that I was doing once a week, I believe. And we were coming on here, we were having fun. It was like really entertaining per se. And then, I had one of those moments where God spoke to me, and it was like, you're going to use this platform to really make a difference. So we have had so many different conversations over the past couple of months. The show is now once a month, and it is normally the first Thursday of every month. That may be changing soon because things change. My life changes, my responsibilities change, my commitments change. And right now I'm looking to see what is the best day of the week to have it, and obviously continuing to honor myself and do something that works for me while still adding value to you guys. So that's just a little bit of background. So we've had really heavy conversations. We have discussed everything from like hoarding to like my love for wine and liquor, and we've grown, we've done a lot since the show has started. So the next time we get together, I'm going to like really cast a vision for this show, right? And for where it is that we're going, where it is that we're moving, and what we want to continue to do as a community. So I say all that to say things are just going to continue to improve. We're going to get better. And together, we're just going to grow stronger, right? So tonight, because it is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, we are going to have a conversation around domestic violence, obviously, right? And I am having all of you meet women that, in my opinion, are just rock star, um just idols, right? Like victors. I will never refer to them as victims. They're victors, like they got themselves out. And you'll also hear from my daughter for the very first time about what her experience was while I was in this relationship, because I myself am a victor, right? And it's one of the parts of my story that I really don't share much. I expect it to get a little heavy, a little, but at the end of the day, what we really want to acknowledge is that every single woman that speaks today has been able to overcome that chapter of their lives, and that's something that we're going to celebrate. So tonight, guys, we are having a celebration for these stories that you are about to hear, and the strength that it has taken for each one of them to move on, to move out, right? So we're gonna start calling our guests, having our guests come on the show. They are backstage, ready to share. They're smiling backstage. They don't know that I can see them. They're super cute, like the sexiest panel that you will ever see. And I'm really excited for you guys to meet them. So first, I am going to have my daughter, aka my sister, come on. Again, she's going to speak from a perspective of what it was like as a kid to be in that type of environment, to witness that, right? And whether or not there have been any long term effects, right? I don't know. I've never asked that question. So without further ado, please help me welcome and blow up the chat, Yaneli Morales. Say hi.
Hello.
What's up? How you feeling? You ready?
Ready.
Let's go. All right. Thank you. Next, we will introduce one of our rock star clients. She happens to be Yaneli's client. She is someone that we had the honor and the privilege of meeting. I want to say 2 years ago, Yaneli, about 2 years ago, when she came to us, approximately that much, that long. And she's somebody that we saw in the before and we've seen in the after. Wow, and like the growth has been, listen, mind blowing. Like it moves me. Like it touches, moves me, and inspires me by who she's become. And it gives me the peace of mind that the people that we know and love will get out, right? That they are on their way. So without further ado, 25-year-old Gabriela Guzman, welcome to the show.
Thank
Ay,
you.
thank you for being here, mommy.
Thank you.
Welcome. Next, we have one of my awesome business partners. She is someone that I have seen in the community. She is somebody that is also a health and wellness coach. And I too have been able to see her really triumph in her role. I remember the first time she shared that, that was her background, right? That she came from a household of abuse. I remember sitting in my chair like, "Oh, girl, you too." Right? Because it's not something that we speak about, right? It's something that we sort of like brush under the rug and hope never comes up again. But she was so open about it, so transparent about it, and she wanted people to know, like, I got through that too. Not only am I transforming my body, but I transformed my mind, right? I grew the strength that I needed to grow to get out of that relationship. So please help me welcome Ashley Ingram.
Hello.
She is so cute. And she's in Atlanta. Are you in Atlanta?
Yes.
She's in
But I'm
Atlanta.
a Jersey girl. I'm a Jersey girl.
Jersey girl by heart. Thank you for being with us, mommy.
Thank
And
you for
then
having me.
last but certainly not least, guys, this rock star Latina is someone is she's my longest friend. I love to say that, right? I was gonna say oldest friend, but like, nah, bro, we not old, okay? Like that, we not allowed. We're not allowed to say that. She is my longest friend. She is someone that I met in the 3rd grade, and we've been friends for so many years. It's been quite an honor to see her grow, develop, transform, and become the rock star Latina that she is, making noise in Philadelphia, but not just here. Like, this thing is going global. We're going worldwide with this, right? Like what we're doing. And tonight you'll get to hear why she took this personal. She took this personal, and I'm not gonna get emotional. Whoo! She took this personal, and she has dedicated her life to raising awareness for this topic. And it's not for her something that's just done once a month. It's not. This is a month where there's a worldwide awareness, right? But this is something that lives in her heart every single day. And we need people like this, right? To remind us that we're not alone. So without further ado, please help me welcome Cristina Maria Vega.
My whole
My
government
whole
name.
government name.
Dang. You can't just
CMV,
be Vega.
That's it.
What's
We're like,
up? You got me over here on the other side, like, all right, why she get emotional and knowing damn well I cry for everything?
listen, that's what we're, it's just you I need to give you guys your flowers while you're here, right? We need to give the acknowledgement that is due, and I want you to know that what you're doing does not go unnoticed. Like, I see
Thank you.
I see you every
Thank
day. I
you.
know I have my life going, and I have things that, to me are a priority, but I see your efforts, and I'm so, 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 so proud of you. So proud.
Thank you, mi amor. I appreciate that. Hi, ladies.
All right, so we're gonna get this party started, okay? The first question that I have for you guys, and just to give the viewers, an idea of how these conversations are led, there is no preparing them for what's to be discussed today, right? And the reason for that, I just, told them why in our like pre-meeting per se, is because I don't want them to get all into their heads about what's going to be said. And I never want to have a conversation that seems rehearsed, right? That seems like you had time to think about it. It's almost like, right? It's like in the moment, like the what so. So I am always curious to know, like, why did you accept the invitation, right? And just before we do that, I just want to set the intention. The intention for me, I don't know whether or not you guys have your own intentions for the call, but the intention for me is to give at least one more victim the power to leave. Because if they're still in a relationship, technically they're still, right? They're still fighting. There's still a fight there to be won. So in my opinion, if we give at least one more of them the power to leave, the courage to leave, the strength to leave, we've done our job, right? Because it starts with one, because that's just one more person who has the opportunity to impact via their strength and their courage to impact someone else's life. So I just want to know, like, why did you accept the invitation to be here today? So that's the first question. We'll start with you, Cristina.
Let me unmute myself. This is weird for me being on the question side.
I know.
I like it. I think it's pretty evident for many of the people who follow me and you being in my life so closely. I'm going to try, and I'm promising the audience, if you don't know me and you don't follow me, you don't know that I'm a crybaby. So if I cry, that's it. That's what I do. The answer was immediately yes. As you stated, I take it super personal. Domestic violence is something that we are kind of shunned, especially in our community as minorities, to not talk about. Oh, I already feel it in my chest. And I this is a part of who I am every day. I tell people every time they see me at my gala or at the run or at different events, that this isn't about popularity. It's not about the money. It really is about the awareness and just allowing women and men and anyone who's dealing with this type of abuse to kind of just know that I was where you were. I was in those shoes, and I thought that day was never going to come, where I felt liberated and I felt released and I felt free. But I've come a long way from that. My abuse was at 20 years old, and I'm going to be 41 years old, and I'm a totally different person than who I was at that time. And I want people to know. And I think platforms like yourself, platforms like mine, and platforms that a lot of people have allowed me the opportunity to have, give me the ability to show people that no matter who you are, whether you feel like you're a nobody at that moment, you're somebody, no matter what that damn person tells you. So me being here and you being there, and Gabriela and Janelli and everybody who comes on these shows and speaks about it tells people that, listen, estábamos allí, pero estamos acá ahora, and we're going to get out of it. I got out of it, and you will too. So I said yes, because it's what I do on a daily basis. And why would I not say yes? As spreading awareness, that's what we do.
Thank you. And one of the things that I want to point to in what Cristina just shared is that she did include men, right? She's like women, men, right? Because I think there's just such a myth that is something that happens to only women. And Cristina has had men on her show that have shared their stories and testimonies.
Right.
All right. So we want to just make sure that that's clear. This does not just happen to women. Okay.
Absolutely.
So thank you, Mommy. Thank you for that answer.
No
All right.
problem.
We will go now to Ashley. Ashley, why did you accept the invitation tonight?
Well, I would like to say I actually reached out to you. Shout out to you just for having a platform, you being a servant leader, right? To have somebody and people like us to be like, yeah, I'm down. And the reason why I spoke up is because I was silent for so long. I didn't even know that it was actually abuse because I was normalizing it and I didn't even recognize it. I'm such a strong person that I'm just like, oh, all right, well, relationships, this would happen, whether it's verbal or physical. I just normalized it. And once I got out and taking a landmark form, I said, I gotta go back and help somebody. Even if it's just one person, I gotta go back and help somebody. I got out of it. And then it just helping me see that any test that you pass, you gotta go find somebody to help them because you can share how you got through it. So that's what made me speak up unapologetically. I know before I wouldn't speak up because I was scared of the other party of like, oh, I don't want to. But you can share your story without going in details of the name of that person. Let people figure out whatever. And like, Jackie was saying, when you start this, it's not to bash the other person, because at the end of the day, I did have my own choice to leave or stay, so, but it's something in you that you got to find, like a helping hand like this, to be like, man, this is an alignment. This is no coincidence that this is coming up. I need help. I need to get out. So I just want to be a servant.
Thank you for that. And one of the things that I want to highlight about what Ashley just shared is that, yeah, for a long time we normalized it. I did the same thing. I actually blamed myself. So for me, for a long time, it wasn't abuse because I made it happen, right? Like it was. And now when I look back at it, I'm like, oh my God, like who was I? I don't know who I was. I don't know who I was. But it was like such the norm, right? And we'll get a little bit deeper tonight. Gabby, why did you accept the invitation, my love?
Well, this is actually my first time publicly speaking about it. So it was a nervous yes. It was a yes, but it was a nervous yes, I'll be honest. Um, Actually, when I had wrote the post, it took me 3 days to even write that post. I realized that I'm still suffering from PTSD. I actually just started with a therapist in regards to this because I came to the realization, like, all right, I definitely have PTSD. So it took me like a good 3 nights to actually write all that I have written in my story. So when you ask me, I'm like, all right, this is a sign from God. He's going to use me because my whole goal here, too, which I'm sure it's everyone else's goal on here, is I want to help other women and even men, too, like you said, but other women, especially who've been in my position, because I was in the abuse for 7.5 years. I met my abuser when I was 16, so I was young. And a lot of the people that I associated myself with did not go through these things, or so that they didn't share that I knew of at the time. But they didn't go through these things. And I feel like had I have known somebody in that moment that I was in that situation going through the abuse, it would have been a lot different for me. I feel like a lot of people, family too, like judged me when they weren't even going through the same thing. They were like, oh, why don't you just leave? And it's really not that easy to just leave. And you normalize it, it becomes a cycle. So I feel like I want to get my voice out there. I want to share my story because I didn't have that personally for myself when I was going through the situation. And I actually found out about Love Shouldn't Hurt after the fact, after I left my abuser. And it's been such an impact over my life. Like, I am so grateful for Christina. Jackie, I'm grateful for you when we stood on your porch and you shared with me your story. Like, I'm just so grateful. So I see how the Lord is working. He's moving. And this is just the beginning of what I have planned too. So I'm excited.
Let's go. Thank you so much. And one of the things that I want to point to, that she discussed is, yeah, you there, for me especially too, and I know for Christina and every one of us on the call, or on the show rather, sorry, you question whether or not it's something that you want to speak about. You question whether or not it's something that will make a difference for anyone, right? For me, for so long, there was kind of like this shame, right? It was just like me, like people will never believe that Chef Jackie went through this. Like never in a million years. So I honestly did not share my story until Christina asked me to be a part of the ¿cómo se llama? Documentary.
The documentary, ma'am.
Así es que se llama. Así es que se llama. That's what it's called. Right?
Exacto.
And for me, it was like, if you watch me in the documentary, first of all, I cringe every time I watch myself. I'm like, oh
You
my
did
God,
just
what
fine.
am I wearing? Why does my face look like that? Oh my God, my makeup, I didn't get my makeup done. They all look so cute, right? There's so much judgment because we're our own worst critics. And
Right.
it takes away from the fact that, yo, you made a difference for somebody else.
Hmm.
Because I still get messages, or if I'm communicating with someone, they're like, oh yeah, I met you or I know you through Love Shouldn't Hurt. You were at Christina's thing. And so yeah, there's just this like shame factor, or this like, I can't believe it happened to me, or like Gabby said, you're being judged. I think we
Hmm.
lost Ashley, but she'll be back.
Hmm.
You feel like you're being judged, your family is
Hmm.
judging you, they're pointing the
Yeah.
fingers, they don't understand why. And you're right,
Hmm.
it's not easy to leave.
Nope.
It's
Nope.
not. It's so hard. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life, besides getting to president's team. But this is not about that, right? We know I'm talking about that right now. This is not that show, okay? But
I'm done with
seriously,
her.
like, so thank you for pointing to that. Yaneli, why did you accept the invitation?
Um, so like you mentioned in the beginning, I think that we don't hear enough from the kids that are in the homes witnessing this, no matter the age. I was already old enough to kind of understand what's going on, but even little kids, they know, they're very smart. They can put two and two together, and it does leave a lasting impact. And so, not just because you're my mom, but I'm grateful that I get to be the voice for the kids, like Alina. I think that it's so powerful to hear their perspective too. So that's why I said yes.
Yeah,
Thank you. Woo!
absolutely.
Woo! All right. So we're waiting for Ashley to get back. She seems to be having some connection issues. There she is. Woo woo! She's back. All right. So thank you, ladies, so much again for accepting the invitation to be here. The next question is, do you remember the first time? And if so, can you give us like a brief, uh, a brief, like walk us through that day or that experience just briefly. And the reason why I'm asking that question is not to put you in a space where you're uncomfortable, but because there may be someone on the show that's watching that questions whether or not something like this can happen again. Kind of
Mhm.
like, oh, he just did it or she just did it, right? One time, she was upset that time. It's probably not going to happen again. Kind of like,
Mhm.
like I want our viewers to get like, this could be where it starts. If you don't remember, maybe an incident
Mhm.
the first incident that you recall. So Christina, we'll start with you.
I think you set me up because I'm a crybaby and this is gonna make me cry.
Let's go.
That's it's crazy because you say if you don't remember the first time, remember an incident, and I can remember every single incident, as crazy as it sounds, very vividly. And I think we know that when we went through the documentary, right? Because you and Zulma said parts of your story, but I literally start from finish. I said all of my incidents in my story because I was so passionate about it. Um, so just really quick background so that I'm not here forever. At that time that my abuse began, I was actually sitting in the position as a mental health worker. I was a social worker in a high school. So during this time, I'm telling girls every day, you got to feel yourself, look in the mirror, love yourself, don't let anyone abuse you, don't let anyone hurt you. Telling boys all the time, keep your hands off of girls, love them, love yourselves. And then I was going home and getting my butt whooped every day. So I was not living in my purpose at the time. I was living absolutely opposite of what I was telling these people. So I was definitely not practicing what I was preaching. Um, so I was a school social worker during that time. He had never hit me before, and we pretty much were great. We went to the gym together, we hung out together, we watched movies together. I'm corny, I do corny jokes. He would laugh. We would do things together. It was fabulous. Um, and that evening, he worked a night shift job. And I had already known by this point that he was cheating on me. But at that time, my self esteem was at a low that no one could take me from. So for me, it was at least I have someone in my life. So I accepted the cheating. So he worked a night shift job, and during that evening, he had come home. For him, lunchtime was like 9 o'clock at night. So he had come home. I had served his plate. It was on top of the table, and he had come home late. So I knew he only had a short amount of time to get back to work before he had to start his shift again. He was on his phone, blatantly having a discussion with this female, and just kind of just talking to her, and I'm gonna see you when I leave here. And knowing that he had been reprimanded a few times at work, even in that past week, I had said to him, "You only have a few minutes to get back to work after you eat. Who are you talking to?" He immediately hung up the phone and took the plate that he had just finished eating and broke it across my face. And here go the tears. I do it all the time. I always say I got over it, but I didn't. So he broke the plate over my face and it knocked me down to the ground. And after he walked out and the blood was going down my face, I literally sat on the floor and I thought to myself, did that shit just happen? I've been with this man for over 2 years now, and he's been like, he's loved me, he's been good, we've been good. Did he really just hit me? And like the blood was down my face, and that was the first time he hit me. And I hear people often say, "Oh, it'll never happen to me because for the first time I'm gonna walk away." We all say the same thing. I thought I would walk away, and I didn't walk away until 6 years later. And from that point on, that was like kind of the open door of him showing me this is who I am. And I pretty much was beat up every day for the next 6 years.
Mm. Mm. Thank you for sharing that.
Of course.
Thank you. Ashley? Ashley, mommy, are you there? I think Ashley is having connection issues. You there, Ash? You are still muted, my love. Ash? You're muted.
It say unmute.
There you go.
Okay. Sorry. Okay. I was going to say it was unfortunately I attracted a lot of men that I can't even remember the first one because it was more than one abuser that I had. Okay. So I'll just talk about, the more recent one. We were friends and we didn't really even think we were going to be in a relationship, but we ended up being together. We were great friends first, and I already had saw anger in him, but since we were great friends, I'm like, I didn't think he would do anything like that to me. But that first 3 months, you know what they say, that's the honeymoon stage. After that third month, yeah. So I seen the signs, but we were in our third month. We were at a game, and he was upset thinking that I was talking to a family member of someone else that I used to date. So we were at this big game that happens every year at my high school I went to. And he came over to me during halftime and he just like yoked me up in front of everybody. And I was more embarrassed than anything because I'm like, I'm over here acting like we good over here and you like putting us on blast, you putting your hands on me. But it was more so that after that even if I didn't bleed or anything, that's when it started happening of just the abuse. Like it just continued from there. It went from once a week to it went from once a month to once a week to almost every single day. So that was the first time, and I didn't think it would happen to me because I just like, all right, I thought I was helping this person out and I care for him so much. I wanted the best for him, but I just stayed in that relationship for about 3 years and it only trickled down from there. So that's what I remember from my first time, just letting it happen, not speaking on it. Couldn't believe that it happened to me because I'm like, I felt like I'm trying to help you. Like we're growing together and you want to put your hands on me. Like, and from there, since I never spoke up and I let it be normalized, it happened more often from that point.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Gabby?
So I remember, kind of like Christina, I remember a lot. And I remember the very first incident, I think because me and him were both stunned. It was at his apartment. And I remember I was staying there a few nights a week. I wasn't actually living there, but I was staying there. I was also helping like pay bills there. So, I felt like it was kind of like our home together. And I as well knew that he was cheating, but I didn't want to believe it. So I just kind of stood there. And one night he came home, and I think I had stood there maybe like 3 or 4 nights in a row at this point. And he had come home and angry, very angry. And, up until then, it was good. Like, I never seen the side of him. He was a drinker, so I could tell that he was drunk. And he comes in very angry, even in front of his friends. His friends were there when the incident had happened, too, two of his friends. And he was like, you need to leave, you need to get out. And just, kind of cursing at me and trying to get me out. I'm a very stubborn person. I probably should have left, but I didn't. I was like, I'm paying to live here too. Why are you acting like that? Why are you coming home like that? I'm not leaving. Like, to me, I wanted to talk about it because I'm like, what the heck is your problem? So we're just like going back and forth at this point. And at this point, I'm not leaving because I want an answer. I want it now. I want to know what is the problem. And that's when he started getting physical. He started putting his hands on me. He started to like grab me and try to like literally throw me out of the door. And I was fighting. I was literally like fighting back. And it got to the point where he picked me up and then literally like threw me at the door. And I remember I hit my head on the like on the edge of the door and ended up falling. And I looked at him and he looked at me with kind of like this stunned look. Like I couldn't believe it. And I feel like he couldn't believe he just put his hands on me. So at that point I got up and I left. Like I was in so much shock. And his friends kind of stood there and nobody really did anything about it. And from that point on, the abuse got so much more deeper, so much more heavier, more frequent. And believe it or not, it happened in front of his family, his friends. He would do it in front of everybody. Kind of like Ashley, no shame. It was just like I tried to make it like we were good, and he was just hitting me up in front of everyone, like beating me up in front of everyone, cursing at me in front of everyone. So it was hard. A lot of the abuse actually happened in front of our kids too. So that was another big thing, which I'm happy Annelli's here to actually share that point of view. Because to me, that was a big thing. Like my kids are young, but I was worried about how it would impact them in the future.
Yeah, and there's something in the share that I find real interesting, and I don't know if you have another word for it, Vega, but for me, it's interesting that he did it in front of other people because that was not the case with me, and that's just not the case with
Myself
a
as
lot
well.
of the stories that we hear. Am I right?
No,
You
absolutely. A
know,
lot of it is done in the dark.
yeah, they don't
Mhm.
they nobody knows. Nobody
Mhm.
knows. To the outside world, they're like this one person.
Mhm.
They're
Facade.
this like, oh my God, he's so great, right? I mean, my family knew the truth, right? Like my family could see
Yeah.
behind all that,
Yeah.
but he would not dare. Oh no, there's just you do that in front of my family or friends, you're getting something's happening. So I think that was very rather bold, right? For it to be something that he did out in the open. So I find that very interesting in your share. It's almost like shocking to me that it was so open.
It's a different
Anything you want to
dynamic.
add, Vega?
I just think that's a different dynamic. I mean, I've heard so many stories in the past 3 years. It's not often. I have heard stories where they've done it. I mean, my cousin was on the show a few weeks ago, and her abuse started when she was 13 by a grown man who was in his 30s. And he blatantly did it in front of her mother and different people. So I think it's just a different dynamic, and it depends on the person. Everyone is different. Every abuse situation is different. I mean, for myself, I'm like you. It was a facade. Everybody who saw him on the outside was just like, oh, he's handsome. You guys are funny, but they had no idea. Now, like you said, your family knew, his family knew, and they were my friends. So his family kind of was just, I was in that whole blockage, at the beginning, color de rosa. So to me, when they would sort of warn me, like, this isn't the guy for you, I was kind of like, he's good, he's fine. They knew, and I didn't want to see it because I wanted what I wanted.
Got
But
it.
a lot of people hide behind a facade. But I have recently, not in the past, when we started Love Shouldn't Hurt, when you and I began it together, I didn't see it, but I'm seeing it a little bit more frequently now, where people are saying that it's done in front of family members, but after a while, kind of like, I
Got it.
guess, once they get comfortable.
Mm, wow.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. This is the first time that I'm having my daughter really share her experience. All right. So I just want you guys to get that this is very new for me. And I'm actually, I don't know, it's just there's a space automatically that I go to mentally that's like I'm asking myself, am I really ready to hear her share? And again, I know that I am, but it's almost like, again, like this guilt factor. So go ahead and take yourself off mute and just share what you remember. I know you're not going to remember the first incident, but what do you remember?
So, yeah, I don't remember the first incident. I just remember, okay, I'll just say like this one time. It was Christmas time. I don't remember how old I was, but I remember being outside and playing in the snow by myself. Like a couple years ago, you could do that. Now I wouldn't recommend it. But I was by myself outside playing in the snow. I go to run inside and I see them, going back and forth and like tussling over this. We had a coffee table in the middle of the living room, and they were like moving their way towards the Christmas tree and ended up tipping over. And so I like panicked. I'm the only kid in the house. He had children, but they didn't live with us. Um, and I ran and grabbed. Back then, we had a house phone. Grabbed the house phone, and I called 911. And that's what had them stop. And like that's just all I knew to do. I was just like, I'm gonna call 911. And I remember, mom running to me like, no, we're good, like it's fine. But I just remember coming back inside like all excited. I think I probably did a snowman. I don't know what. I came inside like excited, and I just remember seeing it. And I'm sure you'll have more questions for me as the show goes on, and I'll share more of my experiences and stuff like that. But that was just one of the times that I remember.
I remember that day. I remember that. If I can be honest with you guys, I don't remember the first time. I think I've done such a good job at forgetting. I've done a really good job. I know when I left. I knew when I had enough, and we'll talk about that. But I don't remember the first time. Because again, a part of me still feels like there's a shock that it's even a part of my story. I do remember, and I'll share this. I remember the time when I realized it wasn't me anymore, because as I mentioned earlier, I blamed myself, because a lot of times I started the altercations myself, or I'm like, I'm going to strike first before he strikes, right? So I remember one morning I was getting dressed for church, and I forget what the argument was about, but I know that he said something and I responded with an attitude. And like, God forbid I did that, right? I remember him walking over to my side of the bed and like beating me up so bad that like my shoes came off, and my shirt ripped. And I remember like crying and begging him to stop. And then he stopped. And I remembered me shaking and me being so upset, and me still going in the shower, right? Going in the shower, cleaning up my face, doing my hair, right? I'm putting my hair in a ponytail, but I have like these bruises. And I'm like, oh my God, like people at church are going to see this. So I have to redo my hair in a way where like the bumps aren't evident. And I remember still getting dressed, still going to church that day, sitting in church asking God to give me the strength. But it was at that moment that I knew that it wasn't my fault. It wasn't this time, it wasn't my fault anymore. Like I was doing and being whoever I needed to be to not upset this man. And like now everything that I was doing was causing him to be angry. And then at this point, just like a lot of you guys shared, it went from, because I honestly don't even remember it being like every week or every day. This was something that happened, maybe once a month, maybe twice a month. It wasn't like it was frequent. And again, that's how I know that I still identified so many reasons why. Like I had so many justifications for why it wasn't that bad. You get me? But when I look back at it now, I'm like, dude, I was getting dressed for church, right? But for me, it's exciting. It's exciting and it's interesting that I still, and I guess part of it obviously was to just get away from him at the time. But I find it so exciting that part of my story still points to like, I still made it to church. Like that did not keep me from going to church that day. Because at the same time, I'm like, I know, oh, you know what? You're right. I know exactly what I need to do when I'm in this spot that I'm about to go to. And it's to pray that he gives me the strength to get away from you. Right. And so that's one of the things but I do not remember the first time. But I'm sure, because there were several times where I was just surprised. I was surprised that it happened more towards the end, where it was like, did that really upset you? Oh my God. Did that really upset you? Oh my God. Like, I could not believe the things that were starting to upset him. Like they started to be even more ridiculous, if I can use that word. Like kind of like, damn, that made you mad too? Like, okay, at this point, everything that I'm doing is triggering you. This is getting serious. Like this is getting real. So I kind of saw it gradually get worse. It wasn't like horrible at the beginning. And again, I guess for me, that's why I justified it. So thank you ladies for your share. I know that was very uncomfortable. The next question is, because I think a lot of times people are just curious, like people ask, like, why did you stay? Why do you think you stayed? Right? Because that's for me a question of interest. For me, when I speak to someone that I know is in that type of situation, even if they have not yet admitted it to me, but because I know the signs, it's for me, it's kind of like, why are you in this? Like, why? So Christina, why do you think you stayed?
I don't think I know absolutely why I stayed. I was there for 6 years, and like I stated, I already worked in mental health. So for me, it was more of keeping the facade. There's a number of reasons, so I'm going to give you the list. The first one was keeping up the facade. I could not be this strong, independent Latina who's doing her thing, who has her own apartment, who goes to work every day, and I'm making differences in these kids' lives. I can't tell these people that I work with that I'm not really that girl. I can't tell them that when I go home, I'm crying every night and I'm getting beat up. So one was I have to keep up this facade. The second one was I was totally disappointed in who I was as a person, and I was embarrassed to face my family. Both of my sisters had already been married by this point. They had husbands that adored them. And, I'm the last one. I'm the baby. I'm the one who, well, she's done college now. She'll be the next one to get married. So to me, I felt like, all right, well, I'm going to be the disappointment, because not only am I accepting somebody who's cheating on me, but he's beating me and I'm still here. But then I can't leave, because then if I do, I'm admitting to all those things. And then my ultimate final reason for staying is I had no sense of who I was as a person at all. My self-esteem was shit. Like when I looked in the mirror, Christina was not this beautiful, amazing, whoever it is that I can now say that I am. Right now I could look in the mirror and say, damn, you are phenomenal. Back then, when I looked in the mirror, I saw every single thing he was embedding in my brain. So, every single thing that I hated about myself is exactly what he used against me. And as Michael May has said several times on my show, I had not only been abused just by this person. He might have been the first person who physically may have hurt me the most, but I had been abused so much by just friendships and men prior to that, emotionally and mentally, that I was a prime target to be abused, because I already did not care about myself. I already felt like I was ugly. I was fat. My teeth were ugly. Everything that he told me every day was the personality and the image that I was taking on for myself. So at this point, it's like, why am I going to leave? At least I have someone, if I leave him, then I'm left by myself. And, all my friends are in relationships. So if I leave him now, I'm out of a relationship and I don't have someone. So whether he's cheating or he's beating me, at least I have a companion, which speaks a lot for who I was at that time, because at that time I had absolutely no self-worth. So those were my three main reasons for staying: embarrassment, keeping up a facade, and I truly just didn't love myself as a person.
Yeah, I get that. Thank you, mommy. Thank you for that share. Ashley, why do you think you stayed?
Yeah, I can definitely piggyback off of Christina. I was embarrassed to tell people what happened because basically I was isolated. I was no longer talking to my friends like that. We used to have a group chat. We used to be talking all the time. And we was at one point we were sharing the phone. It's like I had to remove myself from the group chat because I'm like, he has my phone. So like I missed out on trips with my friends and stuff like that because I isolated myself. Part of me was scared. He would threaten me and say things. And I feel like bigger than the physical abuse, I know y'all can attest to this, the bruises go away, but the words don't. So like Christina was saying, like, everything he said, I just embedded in my mind that that's who I was. No matter when I went outside in the world, Ashley, you're so happy all the time. But I was dreading going home. I was lying to myself and everybody around me. So and like she said, I didn't know who I was because for a fact, if I had the mindset of who I was right now, I wouldn't even got started with him because of, if you know who you are, your self-love, you ain't supposed to be treated that way. So it's easy to have somebody come in if you're already vulnerable and you don't know this about yourself, that you have the power to say whoever you are. So those are the reason. And also justifying his actions. I was kind of like sad for him. I'm like, well, he came from a rough background. I know he went through a lot, trying to be a mother when I didn't have no kids at that point. And then eventually we did have one child, which made me, stay a little bit longer than I should have, because I'm like, I don't want a broken home. I don't want to be without. It's the first time me being a parent, and I don't want to be a single parent at this moment. So I just tried to really, how women are, we try to leave it all on the floor. Like, let me make sure I'm done. So, I think I overstayed, but, those are the reasons: embarrassed, justifying his actions, being scared, because I isolated myself. I didn't want to share with other people what was going on, and I didn't know who I was.
Just to add to that, I know all too well about justifying. And for me, if I'll just answer the question now. I felt so bad for him. I felt so bad for him, right? His mom was a crackhead, right? Like, not to joke about it, but like in a sense of the definition or how we refer to them, like she was someone that was addicted to drug. His words, not mine, right? Just to make sure we want to make sure that we don't disappoint anybody that's watching the show. His mom, she was an addict. His father, it's exactly what he did. And I was just convinced that I was just going to rewrite his script. Like, nope, you're going to be different. We're going to get through this. We're going to make this work. I can help you. Right. I mean, I helped you with everything else. Right. Because I'm a fixer. And just for me, it was like, oh, bendito, like, he needs me. Like, he doesn't have anywhere to go, right? Because he didn't. I mean, yes, he had family, but it's like he doesn't want to go live with his mom, right? He doesn't want to go live with his father because his father's in a different marriage. They got their own kids and all that stuff. Like, it doesn't look good for a 30-something-year-old man to come back home to live with dad, right? And it was just, again, just justifications and like, it's not his fault. Life like really dealt him the wrong cards, and I'm here to make that better. Okay, Gab, why do you feel you stayed, babes?
I stayed for almost pretty much the same reasons. Definitely my kids was one of the main reasons why I stayed way longer than I should have. I think I didn't grow up in a broken home, but I did grow up in a home where there was a lot of abuse. So I felt as though, like, okay, well, maybe if I can make my family work, they won't have to be in a broken home. They won't be without a father, you know. So like I was kind of torn between like, all right, do I put them through what I went through as a child, or do I go through the unknown and break up the home and move away from this? So that was one of the reasons why I stayed. I wrestled with that for years. Another reason was embarrassment, because I hid a lot of things from a lot of people. I wasn't upfront with my abuse and everything I was going through. I shared bits and pieces with certain people, but I was ashamed, like, you know, because he was my husband. We were married. And it's like for me to say, you know, okay, my husband does this and he does that. It's so embarrassing for me. And I defended his actions, I defended who he was. So I didn't want to look like a hypocrite. I'm like, you know, I'm sitting here sticking up for this man and, you know, I'm believing in his good side and genuinely I loved him. So that was another reason why I stayed too. Like I truly loved him. I wanted the best for him as a person, as my husband, as the father of my children. So I truly did care about him. And I felt bad as well because, you know, his father was an alcoholic and he was becoming an alcoholic. So I felt bad. I'm like, you know, these generational curses. I was just making so many excuses for him and his behavior and why he was the way he was. So I was like, you know, maybe if I can help him, point him in the right direction, like maybe he can be better, maybe he can be this. Just so many things I was justifying. And then another reason was the self-esteem thing, like everything he was putting in my head, like I wouldn't be financially well off without him. There's no way I'd make it. Nobody would ever love me. Nobody would take me with two kids. You know, I'm crazy. I'm this, I'm that, I'm fat, I'm, you know, all these things. And after a while of hearing it so often, and I heard it almost every day, you believe those things. You're like, yeah, no one is going to love me. At least he stays because maybe he does love me. Maybe that's why he won't leave me. Maybe he truly does love me. And this is what love is supposed to look like. So I began just telling myself that. So there was just so many reasons why I stayed. And I mean, I look back now and I'm like, my eyes are so wide open now. But at that time, like you really do normalize literally everything. And it's like, okay, this is normal. Why would I leave? This is what it's supposed to be. So those are the reasons why I stayed.
Thank you. For me, it was just to add to that, the his famous line was, "You're crazy, just like your fucking mom, and that's why you're gonna end up lonely and by yourself, just like her." If I had $1 for every time I heard that, I'd be set. So the question is the same question for you, Yaneli, but I think it's going to be worded a little differently, obviously, since you weren't directly in the situation. But knowing who you know now to be your mom versus who I was back then, why do you think I stayed?
Hmm. I I really have no idea. Um, Maybe the family dynamic. I really have no idea why maybe you stayed. I mean, you shared, you know, the bendito like for him. I know a lot of the times, you know, if you're dating someone and they have kids, like that person is almost dating your kids, right? Like Ashley said, in those first couple months, like everything was cool. You know, my father, for me, the time that I was growing up, he lived away, so I didn't really grow up with my father. So when he came along, and he sort of crept, like made his way into living in the home with us, I called him dad, like I called him stepdad, and I just like was I don't know, I don't maybe that, but besides that, I don't know why you would have stayed, because I could just tell that like the same way that maybe you made him angry, he made you just as angry most of the time, and so that's just a lot of what I witnessed was just so much anger, and it was normal even as the kid in the home. It was normal, like when they shut the door, even though I could hear, like I knew what was going on. Or you know, when I have my cousins or friends over and they see the hole in the door, like what's that? Oh, like don't worry about it, right? Like it was just It became
You know,
normal.
it's crazy that you picked up, and yeah, I think I did miss that one. There definitely was this desire to have the family, right? Since I didn't grow up in that. Absolutely. I think that's something that I may have missed. So there absolutely, and I think for a lot of people in this type of situation, there's this like, I didn't have that, but I want that for my children, and I think Gabby pointed to that as well. So yeah, it's again interesting that you picked up on that. So just want to acknowledge it is 7:56 right now. We do have a commitment to having the show last an hour, but I'm sure that with this question, it's not going to. So just, to respect our viewers, we just want to give you the heads up. With this last question that we're asking, we don't want to have any of our guests tonight to feel like they have to rush, right? To like really take us to that moment when they decided enough was enough. Like, what was that incident? What was that incident? Do they remember that day that they left, and they drew the line in the sand, per se? And again, because of our commitment and what we're looking to accomplish on tonight's show, I want to give you all the respect that you need and the time that you need to share that portion of your story. So, the last question for tonight is, what was it? What was that final incident that had you decide that you had had enough? So, Christina, we'll start with you.
Um, so everyone always, everyone has an opinion, right? Everyone always says, you have a daughter you have to think about. And even to this day, I get that, right? Your decision should be based on your daughter and what's best for her. And I always call Alina my saving grace. So anybody that knows me knows I call her my saving grace. So my line in the sand was because of my daughter. She was 4 years old, and we had already separated. He had already started living with the other woman, but he would still come around and try to be a part of our life and do different things. And, he would pick her up. But his abuse was not just with me at that point, it was also with her. And I didn't want her to see it. So there were moments when I would decide, you're not going to take her. She's going to stay home because that's not the life that I want for her. So this particular weekend, I had gone to a Hispanic fiesta that we have every year. I was with a bunch of people, and my one girlfriend had the bartend that night. And she's like, wow, I don't have anybody to watch my daughter. Will you stay with her? And I'm like, yeah, I'll go stay at your house. Alina has pajamas in her bag. I'll take her. So she was 4 years old. As I was driving to this house to babysit, he called my phone, and I could tell that he was already in a bad mood. He was already very aggressive on the phone. And he's like, I want to see my daughter. I want to see my daughter today. And I was like, you sound like you're in a bad mood. I don't know how the night's going to go. So let's just wait for another day. No, I want to see my daughter. I want to see my daughter. Why are you being a bitch? I want to see my daughter. I'm like, my daughter, you're not in the right frame of mind right now. Think about your daughter and what she's going to see. She's 4. No, I want to see her. I want to see her. So I decided to just turn my phone off. Turn it off. I can avoid his calls. He doesn't know where I am. I'm good. My girlfriend, whose house I was going to, had no idea that this interaction was happening. She's in a different car. She's going to work. I'm in my car with her daughter, and my daughter going to her home. So by a freak weirdness of nature, they end up running into each other. And he mentions that he's trying to get a hold of me. She doesn't know what's going on. So she's like, oh, she's at my house. She's watching my daughter. So he arrives at the home. I don't know that he arrives. Her daughter is 6 and knows him. She looks out the window. She looks back at me. She goes, oh, such and such is here right now. I'm going to open. So before I could even say, no, don't open the door, she's 6. She's by the door. She opens the front door. He charges into the door. And with my 4-year-old standing there, his child, he knocks me out cold. I'm on the floor. All I remember was waking up. My cell phone was gone. He had roofed it so that I couldn't call the cops. The neighbor was standing beside me. My girlfriend was standing beside me. And my daughter at 4 years old is telling the police officer, Daddy just knocked mommy on the floor and mommy didn't wake up. And that was my moment in the sand, because I was like, wow, she's 4. and she knows exactly what just happened. She just comprehended that he knocked me out and I wouldn't wake up. And it was like, that's it. Like, I have allowed this man in my life because I want her to have a father and I want her to, just be normal, right? Because that's what we think it's normal. They have to have a dad because you have to have all of your parents around. And I've allowed her to see the abuse and see different things because I'm thinking she's little, she doesn't get it. And that day she got it. She's crying at 4 years old, and she told the police officer that he knocked mommy down and mommy didn't get back up. And to hear her little baby voice telling the police officer that was like, this is not the life I want for my daughter. So she is my saving grace, because had that moment not happened, had I not heard her voice telling the police officer that when I'm waking up out of being knocked out, I don't know how long I would have dealt with that abuse. So that was it for me. Once I knew my daughter understood, I was done.
4 years old. 4 years old. And what you may not get tonight, for those of you that are either guests or viewers on tonight's show, is oftentimes the day that we make the decision is not the day that it ends.
No. I have
Right?
tried to end it so many times before.
Yeah. Like, I remember for me, it was like 6 months later, like me still dealing with the calls, still dealing with the pop-ups, still dealing with the don't call me, still dealing with the I don't want to have to call the cops, still dealing with the no, I don't want to be with you anymore. Right? The day that it's not like, no, I made the decision, there's no more, I'm not going back. Like, no, I'm gonna do what I have to do to get through this. Like, I'm getting over you. Like, I do not want to be with you. Then there's from the day that decision is made is the weeks or months, or maybe sometimes for some people I have heard of years dealing with right? Like, so it doesn't end when we make the decision. It doesn't. It's then what we have to deal with thereafter is like the being on edge because you don't know if they're gonna show up,
pop up
where you are.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's real. So if you are someone that's going through this, like, we want to walk you through everything that you're going to have to deal with, because it is the what so. Right? Not because we are trying to scare you, but is that we know everything that you have considered, all of the reasons why you're still there, every single thing that you have walked your mind through, we know what that is because we've been there. It's the, oh my God, right? It's the, oh my God, is he going to show up at my job? Is he going to show up at my parents' house? Is he going to show up, at the kids' daycare and make a scene? It's all of it. Like, we know the whole world because we've been there. And for me, it was 6 months. And I remember the day when I was like, oh my God, it was like 2 days. I haven't heard from him anymore. 3 days. Oh my God. Thank you, Jesus. Like, I believe in a God, and a very powerful God. And so I got to give him the honor and the glory and the praise. For me, it was like, thank you. Whoo! Like, when I really stopped getting the calls, that's when I knew I was done. Like, I could really, from this point forward, move on. But we know that sometimes it takes some time.
Yeah,
so,
a victim walks away at least 10 times before they actually leave.
Yeah. Thank you for that, Christina. I am going to run to the ladies' room, guys, because I do not want an accident here while we're on the show live. Like, seriously, it's real for me. But Ashley, go ahead, mommy, and go ahead and start sharing your story.
Yeah, thank you. I was tearing up with Christina because I want y'all to get me, I'm speaking for myself, that I'm crying because I'm taking myself back to that moment, but don't be sorry for me. We are victors. We are courageous, and we want you out there who's watching to be courageous, because we're here to help you, okay? Because we've been through this. So what did it for me was my daughter as well. Like Christina said, at that point she was seeing things, hearing things. She was very, very small, under a year. She wasn't even walking. And literally, I remember it was Sunday, April 30th of 2017. And it's so funny that Chef said about going to church. He was mad that she went to church or something. At that point, y'all, you know, once we leave, we pretty much were left already in our mind. We just were still physically there. We're like, we're leaving. I just don't know when. I want to, I just don't know when this is going to happen. So, you know, mentally, I already wasn't there, but I was going to church because I'm like Chef was saying, praying to God, God, like, what do I need to do? What do I need to change? You know, who do I need to be around? How do I get out of this? And he was upset that I went to church that day. And I came home and, you know, I'm feeling good from church, got poured into, you know what I'm saying? I come home and he just starts an argument about like, you know, this is at the point where I'm getting on my health and nutrition, you know? And he's like, you know, why are you doing all this stuff? And we get to argue about whatever. And it was my daughter was sitting in the high chair and we had some books on top of like a tote, like a tote shelf. And I remember he got so mad, he just smacked all the books off the tote shelf and it smacked my daughter in the face on the high chair while she was sitting in the high chair. And I looked at him, then I looked at her, she started screaming, and I just charged him because I'm like, I most of the time when we got into fights, I wouldn't even hit him. Even though sometimes I'm like, my friends be like, you could have knocked him out. Look at you. I'm like, but it was more than that. He's still a man. I didn't want to be sitting here fighting somebody that I love. So I would never even fight him back because I'm like, I don't want to keep egging him on. So I would just sit there and get beat. But that was the first time like he did that. And I charged him. We started fighting. The door broke. You know, it was holes in the wall. And I remember calling my best friend. And she was so blindsided because I never talked about this to my friends or anybody. So she knew who he appeared to be to her. Nobody liked him. But, you know, I'm all trying to make him glorified, but whatever. And it seemed like she was waiting for the call. I was like, I'm coming over there. At this point, it was Sunday evening, and I never made it back to the house. I just took my daughter, grabbed my keys. I didn't even have my purse or nothing. And I went over to my best friend's house, and she was livid. She wanted to like have her man go over there. And I'm just like, no, no, no. Like, that's just how I've been all my life. Like, never wanting to get other people involved in my mess. So that's why I would put everything under the rug and act like everything was okay. Because I'm like, I put myself in this. I don't want no one to get into this. So, but that was the final straw. You know, my daughter just being right there, and the fact that it's his daughter too, you would think like, come on, let's not do this in front of our child. But once she got hit, and the fact that he was mad that I was working on me becoming a better version of myself, not just health, but like with God, I'm like, oh, this can't not be who I'm supposed to be with. So that was the final straw. And from there, the next day, I had to put a restraining order out because I was scared. I didn't know. I didn't go back to the house. I felt like me just saying, you know, I got somebody coming, or, you know, wouldn't make him not come to the house. So I got the restraining order the next day. I let him know that it was one out there for him, and he never came back to the house. But, you know, that's where the healing, but kind of fighting him off of not doing the pop-ups, like she was saying, oh, getting back in the whirlwind of, I'm sorry, I love you. Y'all know it's a cycle. It's like, it's an incident. They might blame you that it happened. And then it's like, you know, I'm sorry, you know, I love you. And then you take them back, and it's just a cycle. So, you know, he would text me and say, I want our family and things like that. And I'm just like, I was not budging. I was not budging. And it definitely had to be over 10 times, if that's true, Christina. You know, of how many times a victim has to go back before they just say enough is enough. But for me, it definitely was my daughter. I said, who am I to try to, you know, empower women, let alone my daughter that's right in my household, but I'm not walking in that truth. So I sacrificed because for her, and ultimately it was for me. So that's why I left. And that was the final straw.
Thank you. Yeah, my he used to get upset every time I went to church. I would get calls. You know, I was a part of the choir at the time, and you know, you have to go in earlier for practice, choir practice, and then afterwards, you know, clean everything up, put everything away. You know, sometimes politic with people, have conversations, you know, sometimes people will go over to the diner afterwards, and I knew I couldn't do any of that because at some point I was going to get a call, and God forbid I didn't answer that phone, right? God forbid I didn't answer the phone. And the things he would say about people at church, the hypocrites and like he always went there with the religion thing. So that was just another part of the abuse that a lot of people don't point to, because it's not, we want to make sure that people get, it's not always physical. It's not. Gabby?
I think it's ironic that you guys are both sharing that they would be mad about you guys going to church, because mine too. I was actually sleeping on my mattress on the floor in my son's room because I went to church. And I would get called so many derogatory names. I would get awoken from my sleep after he'd wake up from being drunk in the middle of the night because I went to church. And it's very funny to me how you guys say this, because look at how the demon be working. Just look, and look at how God just is always on our side, okay? But anyway, my incident, it's going to be a year on October 15th. At this point, I've already done the 10-time leaving thing. I've done the in my head leaving, the tried to physically leave and then going back. I've done it. And I remember this night specifically, it had been back and forth for a couple of days already. Just him being nasty. I was on the floor of my son's room on my mattress, trying to avoid him. Like, just it was very bad. And this particular day, he was off a specific day during the week and off from work. And I remember I had a massage therapy appointment with someone. She was actually, she's still my friend, but she was my friend at the time. And I had my babysitter, who's also a good friend of mine, come to the house to watch my kids while I went to this appointment. Mind you, I've been in contact with him. I had to let him know where I was going because God forbid I didn't. And I remember he was drinking. I could tell he'd been drinking all day. That was his norm. He was an alcoholic. So I could hear in his voicemail, like I explained to him where I was going, that, my babysitter was coming over to watch the kids, whatever. At this point, he was in Jersey. I figured, okay, I'm gonna go get my massage done, come home. Great. Well, it didn't work out that way. I was getting my massage done, and when you get a massage done, you can't have your phone. I didn't have my watch on, but I left my ringer on because God forbid, my kids. So all of a sudden I hear my phone like ding ding going off, ringing. I'm like, what? And I just so happened to be finished. So I look at the phone and I see the babysitter's text first. Hers is, I immediately just looked at hers and opened it. She's like, hey, he came home. He didn't pay me or anything, but I did leave. And like my heart starts racing because I'm like, oh my God, he didn't even pay her. I knew he was angry just because of that simple fact, is like he didn't pay her. He didn't pay her. So I cashed out for the money, and then I see I had 24 text messages, and the calls just kept coming through as I'm trying to read these messages. So I'm looking at the messages, and I was getting called every name you could think of. Every name that comes to your mind, derogatory, I was probably called it that night. And I remember one of the things, he thought I was cheating. So he called me like a dick sucking whore. And I went to the extreme so much that I said to my friend, I was like, look, can I take a picture with you in here so I can like get him off my back? And at that point, she was like, yeah, like anything. Like she didn't know what was happening until I explained it to her. I took a selfie with her. I still have the selfie to this day. I took a selfie with her in front of like the massage table. I did the whole nine. I sent it to him. That picture meant nothing to him. It's like he didn't even see the picture. So the whole ride home, I'm like, I need to go. Like my anxiety was at an all-time high. At this point, I'm going home. I already know what to expect. And I'm sitting here, I'm like texting and driving. I'm trying to calm him down before I even get to the house, because I'm like, I know this is not going to end well. He's still nasty, blowing on my phone, threatening to lock me out of the house because where we lived at, we had deadbolts in the front and the back of the doors. So even if I have a key, I'm not getting in there if that deadbolt's closed. So, and it was not the first time that he locked me out of the house. So I already knew what to expect. So I need to come up with a plan because like I know he's drunk and he's got my kids. Like that was all who I thought about at that time. So I get to the house and I'm trying to remain as calm as possible. I knock on the door civilly, nothing. I can hear him talking about me through the window and I'm listening to him and I'm listening to the things he's saying and he's like, she's never coming back in here. I'm not letting her the F back in here. Like it was just on and on and on. So at this moment, I'm looking at the air conditioner, the AC unit we had in the window. I'm looking at it and I'm like, I need to push that in. I need to get in that house and I need to get my kids because what else am I going to do? So I'm looking through the blinds. I see his brother and his cousin sitting on the couch. Mind you, the very first incident, he did it in front of people. So them being there, that was not going to save me. So I remember I literally kicked in the AC unit with all my force. And I heard him in the kitchen. So I knew I had a like very small amount of time to jump through that window before he was going to close it. I remember I threw my entire body in there. As soon as I landed on the floor, because he heard the AC unit get dropped in, he comes over and I just remember him just hitting me, repeatedly hitting me over and over again. And I remember hearing my son screaming, leave my mommy alone, leave my mommy alone. And he just kept going. He just kept, and at this point, like this is probably the most amount of times he's hit me ever. And I couldn't even fight back. Usually I always fought back all the time. I couldn't fight back. I was literally frozen in that moment. And I remember I got myself up. He busted my knee so bad. He kicked me in my knee. I remember I got myself up and I couldn't even walk. And I'm like in so much shock at this point. And the next door neighbor, she opened the door and it mind boggles me to a woman can say this to about another female, but he said to her, he was like, so and so, come in here and whoop this girl's ass for me. I'll pay you right now. My son starts screaming, no, don't come in here. Don't touch my mom. I still remember it so well. And she was like, I'm not going in there, but tell her to come out here. Give me $100 and I'll do it. Absolutely disgusting. So I'm just sitting there and I'm literally in shock. I couldn't even move. I was frozen at this point. I could not make sense of what even was happening. And then I remember I was thinking, like, how am I going to get me and my kids out of this house right now? How am I going to do it? The cousin and the brother are literally sitting on the couch like nothing's even happening. Like they're literally watching the TV. Like there's nothing happening right now. Not the first time that that's happened either. So I'm like trying to think of a scenario of what I can do to grab both of these kids and run out of this house, get in my car and leave. I couldn't do anything. I knew I was stuck at this point. So what I tried to do, instead of running out the door, because I knew that wasn't going to happen because he was blocking the door, I tried to take my kids, run upstairs, and I tried to call 911. I ran upstairs. I had grabbed my son at the time, and this part is kind of like a blur. I can't understand why, but I grabbed my son at the time, and I remember he grabbed my son from my hands, and I tried not to hurt my child, so I just kind of let him just take him because I'm like, what am I going to do? Like pull him back? So I run upstairs and I'm screaming. I'm like calling my daughter's name. I'm like, come here, come here, come here. And I remember she's running to me and she's like, Mommy, don't let him take me. And he grabbed her and took her. And he made them stay downstairs. And at this point, I'm running upstairs because I need to call 911. So I called 911 discreetly. I tell them what's happening, gave them the address. Boom, I had to throw my phone because if he saw me call 911, that was it. It was a wrap. So I remember running up into my son's room. I had locked the door. He kicked the door in. He picked up my son's bed and he literally hit me with the bed. And he started cursing at me. And after he hit me with the bed, at this point, I was hurting. I was so hurt physically, everything. There was no fight in me at that moment. He then took my kids. Mind you, he was drunk. He took them. He left with them for the night. The cops eventually came. I had to go down to the police station. And at this point, I was like, there's no help for me. I cannot get my kids back. There's no custody agreement. I literally cannot save my kids right now. Thankfully, the Lord kept my kids. They were fine. He did bring them back the next day. But after that, I had went to the police station. They took pictures. I pushed for a bench warrant because, mind you, at this point, I had already gotten so many PFAs and then wouldn't go to court because he'd manipulate me. It was like I knew at this point I needed to push for that bench warrant because that was the only way that I was going to be able to go. I did all this. I spent like 6 hours at the police station. He comes back the next day. Well, let me back up. Prior to that, I remember praying and I said, Lord, if this is my opportunity to leave, just make a way. Make a way. So he comes back, brings me the kids. At this point, he's still going on, still calling me all these names. I'm silent at this point. I take my kids to school. I'm trying to normalize it as much as possible for them, like nothing ever even happened. And that same day he went to work, I packed as much as I could for my kids and I stood at hotels for 2 weeks. And even at that point, he was popping up at the hotel rooms, banging on the door. He stole license plate off my car. He stalked me, which is how he tracked me at the hotels. And glory to God, because thankfully he was okay, but he did end up getting into a car accident. They charged him with a DUI, and it was the same night he stole the tags off my car. So they had already known what happened because I called the security in the hotel because he was banging on the door. So cops were already aware. So the one cop had called me and he told me what happened. And it's funny because then he calls me, he's leaving me voicemails telling me he's getting arrested. He's having his brother reach out to me. I didn't respond to anybody at this point. And from that point on, once he got arrested, I remember that was literally what I needed the Lord to do, was get him to be gone for a period of time. So it gave me enough time to go back, do what I needed to do, get what I needed to get, and be out. Sure enough, that's exactly what happened. He was arrested. I had the perfect amount of time to do what I needed to do. An apartment came my way. I had family help me put up, the money for it. And that was it. I left. That was my point where I was free. And, now like I'm happy you're talking about it because I'm still dealing with the abuse from him now. There's no co-parenting relationship involved at all. The abuse is still very there. Verbal abuse at this point is still very there. And it's not something I was even prepared for. That's not even something I even thought about. Yeah, like I was scared of like the pop-ups at like the daycares and he was infamous for popping tires and stuff on my car. So I was always scared he'd find my car and pop my tires and I'd be stranded. Like just so many different scenarios, but I didn't realize the manipulation was going to be as heavy as it's ever been. He claimed to be suicidal and I even believed it at one point. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I called I think it was Friends Hospital I called on. I can't even remember. It was Friends Hospital I had called to try to get him 302. Like just it was just so stressful. And one of the things that actually bothered me too is I lost my mom to cancer. And obviously he's very aware of that. So he, made up this whole scenario that he has cancer to try and get me back. So it was just a lot of things that I was not prepared for mentally to even go through. But I'm thankful to God because every scenario that went down, I was able to get, full custody of my kids. I was able to move past it. I was able to get help for my kids because kids really are affected a lot. My kids were young. They were 5 and 2 at the time. Or no, 5 and just turned 3 at the time. And like they saw it all. They saw it all. So it's amazing how much like it'll really affect not just you but your kids. So yeah, that is my story. That's how I got out.
Thank you. Wow. So far it's interesting that I hear that the kids were involved, that the kids were present every time. For me, it was a little different. I was at this point, the first 2 years, we were together 4 years in total. The first 2 years we were living together. After that started getting bad, obviously I put him out, restraining order, all of that stuff. And then obviously I would always go back. So for 2 years of the 4, we were actually living in separate homes. So there was a lot of like, infidelity and like different things that we dealt with. And there were points in my life where I was, doing my own thing, trying to move on, trying to be strong, trying to, get past this chapter of my life. And this was probably around one of the times that we were like, trying to make our stuff work, seeing each other more frequently. Um, and I remember it was a Friday night. And I remember being with him, like we were hanging out at his house. At this point, he had 4 kids. Is one of the things that it's kind of funny now, but it isn't. When we first met, he told me he had 3 kids, and then later I found out he had 4. And when I confronted him about that, he said, "Well, 3 sounds better than 4." Okay, so I should have known. I should have known. I know, I should have known, but 3, like his response was that 3 sounded better than 4. So he had 4 kids. So this specific weekend, this weekend, he had his twin brothers living with him. He had just gotten custody of his twin brothers, maybe about a year, 2 years before that. And they even lived here, but again, I don't want to make this long and drawn out. But they were there, and at least 2 or 3 of his kids were there that weekend. And they were all upstairs playing video games, doing whatever they were doing. There were plenty of times where there were incidents and they were involved, but they would never come downstairs. So they would hear what they would hear, but the kids already knew, like they were old enough to understand what was happening, but they knew, do not come downstairs, because if you come downstairs, you'll get in trouble, right? Like this is grown folk stuff and you mind your business. And so this evening, my cell phone notifications went off because someone has sent me a message on Facebook. And it's funny that she doesn't know this, but it was one of my friends, Nikki. And she sent me a message, and I remembered reading whatever message was that she sent me. And I remember him knowing what the sound was, right? Because that Facebook Messenger sound is pretty distinct. So he's like, "Who just messaged you?" So my response was, because again, at this time, we're like living separately. We had incidents where it was like clear, don't ask me any questions. I won't ask you any questions. So kind of like mind your business. So he asked, I was like, "Don't worry about it." Or I said something along those lines. And he asked again. And I was like, "Hey, I'm not asking you who's calling you. I'm not, because I believe we had an incident about something like that, just a couple of days before, about us asking each other. So I'm kind of like, mind your business." So it's a new phone. He grabs my phone and he throws my phone against the wall. And so I'm like upset because it's a brand new iPhone. It had just come out. And I'm like, "Bro, like you just messed up my new phone." So that I took personal. So I get up, me being the sassy, spicy, "You not gonna mess with me" type of, and at this point I had enough. Like I knew I was done, but I was just like, like we say, like just still in it, because it was like costumbre. So I remember picking up the remote control from the TV. He had just gotten this TV. It was probably like a 50 something, 60 something inch. So I pick up the remote control and I'm like, "Oh yeah, like you wanna, all right, you wanna break my phone? All right, bet. Watch this." So I remember swinging the remote control at the television, and the television is like, the television shatters. So immediately when I see this, I know this is it. Like this is it. This is it. But I didn't know how angry that was going to make him. Like I knew he would be upset, but honestly, I didn't think it would make him so upset that he would want to kill me. He wanted to kill me that night. For the first time in any altercation that we had ever had, this man hit me, kicked me, like I was on the floor, like kicking me on the ribs, kicking me in my face, pulling me by the hair, dragging me across the room in the living room. I'm yelling, kids, kids. I'm calling the kids by name. I'm saying, please help me from the top of my lungs. I know better than to fight back this time. This time, I relinquish all my rights. I'm like, I am weak. I am surrendering. I am so sorry. I did not mean to do that. I will buy you a new TV. Like, that's how sorry I was, because I knew, I flashed. I'm like, God, if you let me come out of this situation, I promise you, this is the last time. If I come out of this alive, I felt like I was going to die that night. I knew I was going to die. And he called me everything in the book. He was so upset. He beat me. He kicked me. My shoes broke again. My shirt broke again. My hair, I'm sure he had hair, some of my hair in between his fingers. Like, it was so bad that night. And then he grabs my purse, right? Once he's done beating me, I remember this thing lasting like a half hour. It was like a half hour of me getting beat up to a point where I thought I was going to lose my life. It was real. It wasn't like a little punch, a little love tap. It wasn't. He was angry. He was going to kill me that night. Choked me, did all of that. Then he grabs my purse and he goes to the door and he says, and get the F out. And good luck finding your keys and all that stuff. So he throws all of my stuff in the street. It's like dark, pitch dark black outside. And he throws all my stuff. So I remember all of my belongings. So at this point, so now I'm like not only beat up, I don't have any shoes. My clothes is tore up. My hair is messed up. Now it's like, how am I going to get home? Am I even going to get in my house? And all of my belongings. So I felt like, oh my God, like my identity, like how was I going to be able to get all this stuff up? Because there was stuff everywhere outside. Okay. So he lets me go. Thank God. Again, to God always be the honor and the glory. I go outside and I start picking up my stuff and I'm crying. And it's like, it's one of those, because I could not believe it was to this extreme. This night, it was extreme. This night, I knew it was it. I had like, there's no possible way I could go back after this. Plus, I just promised God. But what really, really, really did it for me that night, as I am picking up my stuff, was I look up, I feel somebody looking at me. I look up, and in the house directly across the street from him, there was a little girl in the window. Now, I still to this day don't know whether or not it was an actual little girl or just an image that God put there for me to see. But for me, it was God's way of saying, your daughter is watching. You're going to normalize this for her and you're going to make her think that this is okay. And I remember looking up and just staring for a couple of minutes at this little girl. Like, again, I feel like I want to bring you guys back to this night. Like, I just looked and I just stared at this silhouette of this little person looking back at me. And I knew I had to get out. So God knows about the rest of my belongings. I picked up the stuff that I could pick up and I get in my car. Thank God I found the keys. And I drove away, and I remember it was, what's her name? Oh my God, Rolling in the Deep. Who is she? What's her name?
Adele.
Adele. Like, it was at the time that Adele came out, and I have this, I blast the song, and it was the song, and I set fire through the rain. You guys know that song. And I remember singing the song and just crying, and I'm like a crazy person in my car. Like, I'm like, that's it. That's it. Like, this is it. Like, this is it. I remember like screaming that. That was it. I knew that was it. I had to. I remember coming home, feeling the water on my body, and it was burning because of these bruises. Like, I remember the water, everything hurting. Like, it was bad. And that's when I decided that like enough was enough, but it did not end there. Like I mentioned earlier, it was months. And there were times where I even considered it. And there were times when I actually like entertained the idea of like being with this person again. But God had another plan for me and for my life. And so I want to acknowledge you ladies for sharing your story, for allowing yourselves to relive that day. But one of the things that I want to also point out and highlight is that, my child did not like him. Like it had gotten to a point, there were several incidents where it was like, it was evident to me that my child, old enough to understand the type of situation and the type of relationship that I was in, she did not like him. She couldn't stand him. And that enough for me should have been a sign that like, this is not the person that I'm supposed to marry, because I was going to marry him too. Okay. That's a whole nother story. But I'm so glad that I was able to get out. I'm so glad that I made it out that night. And I share that because not everyone does. That's not everybody's story. So we want you to know how seriously we take this topic. This is why Christina is so committed and so devoted, and why it is her passion to share this, right? Because not everyone makes it out alive. So we're going to take the last couple of minutes before we close out to have Christina share like things that are coming up, things that we can support to continue to keep this conversation alive. And we may have another one of these shows with other women, because we want people to know this is the month where we raise awareness, but it's not the only month that it happens. We want this to be a lifelong conversation.
Absolutely.
So go ahead, Christina. Go ahead and talk about your efforts and what you're doing, events that are coming up, and why. Why did you start Love Shouldn't Hurt?
Right. First and foremost, thank you, Jackie, for allowing this platform. People say it to me all the time, but I love when I can say that to someone else, and I'm not the only person who's doing this. So to just piggyback off of what she's saying, it's not something that just is for the moment or something that we're just talking about this month. Love Shouldn't Hurt began because we don't all get out. I mean, I'm going to try not to get emotional, but I do every single time. 3 years ago, August 2018, a friend of mine was murdered by her husband. And that's what pretty much opened the door for me to finally say, listen, she sat through this and none of us knew about it, and she lost her life. And I've lived all these years just in silence. And, maybe me saying something and people knowing my face can make a difference and make someone say, damn, she went through that. I know her, and that was actually the beginning of this whole entire process. And I contacted Jackie because I know Jackie has a Herbalife following. And I'm like, people in your community are going to see you. And that's why I want you there, because they're going to say, I know her. She went through that. And then I chose Zulma because she was in the dance community and people knew her. And I figured they're going to watch this documentary and they're going to see Christina, the photographer, and they're going to see Jackie, the health coach, and they're going to see Zulma, the dancer. And they're going to think, damn, these are all women that we see every day. And you went through that. And that's exactly where this organization began. It began from us just saying, let's just make awareness. Let's put together this documentary in memory of Linda, so that not only she's remembered and people, can know that she was a victim of domestic violence. And this is what happened. Her ending was not the ending that all of us have. I don't think that any of us think of ourselves as such a great person all the time, right? We don't realize how much our stories have been impactful to people. We don't realize that what we're doing right now, Gabby speaking for the first time publicly, Jackie telling her story in the documentary, and it was her first time saying it, me coming out to my family and saying, this is what happened to me all those years that I disappeared and you didn't know what was going on. We take it, very lightly because we think that, it happens, especially in our community, right? Are you Latino? It happens. But it's not something that should happen, because even though all of us made it out, Linda didn't make it out. So my organization is dedicated in her memory, and we'll continue to always commemorate her for the amazing person that she was. And it's terrible that her life was lost to domestic violence, and someone decided that they had that power to just take her life in that instant. We continue our efforts ongoing for the past 3 years. And I say all the time that this is not exactly what Jackie said. This is not just today. This is my forever thing. This is what I will always talk about and what I'm so passionate about, because I want to make sure that through my story and through Gabby, sharing that story and touching me that day when I saw her pictures, that we continue to do that. We wake people up. You know, people, it's happening every day. If you're watching and you're saying, these things happen, no, they happen, but they should not be happening. And they're happening every day. And they're not just happening to Christina or to Jackie or to Gabby. They're happening to people who are sitting as judges, people who are sitting as lawyers, people who are singers, who are actors. It's happening every day. And people take it very lightly because they think, oh, you'll get over it. Not everybody gets over it. It's a lasting effect. My bruises are gone, but my emotional abuse has never gone away. And I'm tormented by thinking of things that I've still lived with and things that I think of that I lived through that time. So I don't want to keep on with that because it's going to make me cry. But I want you guys to know that Domestic Violence Awareness Month is this month, and it is every October. And I appreciate the purple that pops up, and I appreciate people celebrating it. But don't just celebrate it one month. Remind yourselves that if you can be someone who can make moves in the community, do it. Why do I make so much moves? Because I'm the first person, Latina, who's actually saying, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it every day. I'm going to talk about it every day, whether you like it or not. I'm showing my face and I'm making people talk about an uncomfortable situation. Because if my uncomfortable talk bothers you, but that person behind you who I can't see is listening and I help her leave that situation, we've done what we're supposed to do. You know, people say, oh my God, that's all you talk about. You wear purple constantly. Oh my God, it's always love, shit, and hurt. You are absolutely right. And to the damn day that I die, I'm going to rock my purple and I'm going to talk about love, shit, and hurt because someone who was amazing lost her life. And I don't want that to be anybody else's story. And it happens too much, and they say I'm one person and I can't stop it. I don't care. I'm going to keep doing it until I know that I've touched so many lives that we're standing up for ourselves and we're not letting anybody treat us like shit anymore. We're not accepting bad, but we're accepting good because we know our worth and we know that that's not the end of our story. All of us are on this screen and we're amazing individuals and we took that pain and it is now our purpose. So what's happening? Every Tuesday, I'm on this screen and I'm reminding people the reality of it. We talk about therapeutic ways. We talk about discussions people don't want to talk about. What else do we do? October 23rd, if you can participate and you can be a part of the discussion. October 23rd, that beautiful woman up there, we're going to celebrate her. She is one of our survivors that we're going to celebrate and we're going to highlight. We have our Love Gala, where we celebrate our survivors and we remember the people that we lost. It is our gala. We are going to be there that night, making moves in our community, speaking together and standing in solidarity and letting people know that domestic violence is not okay. It's not something that because I'm a minority, it happens. It's not happening. And that's something that we do every year to honor those people within our community. In the spring, we are having our 5K run. Our 5K run, listen, where did I start with talking about my domestic violence? I started with that lady up there who had this show today. She told me, let's do this domestic violence run. I'm very figurative. So when you cross that finish line, you're going to feel like all that abuse was taken off of your back. And when I crossed that finish line, I was sobbing because that's absolutely what I felt that day. I felt invigorated. I felt like I accomplished something. And I felt like that abuse was just weighing off of me. So in the spring, we do our 5K and we will continue to promote that. But our biggest thing right now is our Love Gala because it is in just 3 weeks. We have 68 tickets left and we want to fill that room because not only are we celebrating survivors, but we are going to remember Linda Rios with all the love that we can because an amazing woman was lost that day. So if any of you can make it, it will be at Concilio's Ballroom. You can get the tickets at elconcilio.net. Hit events and hit the Love Gala so that you can be there with us. We will continue hardcore doing what we do with Love Shouldn't Hurt. Jackie is a part of my mission. She is a part of my group. She started this documentary with me and it's been nuts and I've been going crazy about this gala, but we are working on a second documentary. And what we're doing in that one is ourselves, the original crew, are going to interview new people who want to tell their story and make moves within their community. So you see me here, you see my name, find me. If you're someone who wants to share your story, please hit me up because we want to continue to have our stories told so that we can change people's lives and maybe we're saving you tonight.
And there's honestly so much that, so many other topics and so many other incidents and so many other ways that this show could have gone tonight. And look, we again want to acknowledge we've already, this conversation has already lasted an hour and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So we want you to know, like, we've got stories for days.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we make the difference with the time that we have. And I want to say that I am confident that we did what we came to do here tonight.
Absolutely.
And I'm excited for, you, Gabby. I'm excited for you, Ashley. I'm excited for you, Vega. I'm excited for myself. I'm excited for Yaneli. Because we definitely are in our communities powerhouses, right? And so, if you are watching the show and you're currently in a similar situation, we want you to know that, like, life still continues. There are still, yes, again, there are lasting effects, right? There are things and spaces that myself, I wasn't in a relationship for over almost 10 years. I didn't, allow myself to get into a relationship. But even that, there is and always will be a light at the end of the tunnel.
Absolutely.
And we want to offer that to someone. We really want to offer that to. So if you're watching the show and you have questions, or you need help to get away, or you have doubts, you have fears, you have considerations, you have whatever it is that may be coming up for you, we want you to know here on this broadcast, here on this show, you have 5 people willing to provide the help that you need to get away, because we want to be able to say we know another person and another person and another person, that got out alive.
Yeah.
So I'll drop all the links and everything. Normally, I would want people to give their last option, their last words and their final thoughts. And I am going to still do that, but I'm going to ask that you are please brief, so that we can continue with our lives and let people get back to their lives. And I promise you guys, I'm considering a second show this month, since this is the month for domestic awareness, violence awareness, so that it's a possibility that we'll come back again. But I'm just going to ask each and every one of you to just share final thoughts, maybe a sentence, 2 sentences, just the last words, final thoughts on what you want our viewers to be left with tonight. So Ashley, are you still there? Because you guys are all frozen on my end, but I can still hear you, so I know that you're there. So Ashley, are you still with us?
I don't see her little box.
Okay. How about, well, we'll start with you. Go ahead, Yaneli. Final thoughts?
My final thoughts, because this is just as close to me. Oh, Ashley says she's backstage. Just as close to me as it is, to you. Yes, think about your kids, but most importantly, you really do. It must seem like how, like there is no life after this, and there most certainly is. And just to see the change and the transformation from where we were as a family to where we are now, and how we use our story, like that is why. And it doesn't justify it. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't mean anything is your fault, but we do have, you do have a community here that's willing to help you. And so I know people, and, I know, like, it may seem like, how? I need help. Like, I don't know what to do. Reach out to us, and we will most certainly do all we can in our power, because we don't want to lose you. But definitely think about your kids, because it does leave an impression.
Thank you, my love. Gabby, are you still with us? Can you guys hear me?
I hear you.
All right. I don't know if we lost Gabby, or can you hear Gabby, Chrissy?
I don't hear her. No, her screen is black.
Okay. How about, okay, so we'll end with you, mommy. Go ahead.
Well, I'll make it short and sweet. I think I talk a lot. If you keep me on here, I'll be here running forever. But short and sweet. I made my pain my purpose, and I think that we all have the ability to do that, because there's absolutely a life after domestic violence. You know, there's going to be scars that are left with you for the rest of your life, but you're in control of what you can do with each day. And I start a lot of my mornings with a positive affirmation, and I started with, there's Gabby. I started with just driving and doing a powerful note for folks, you know, to start off their day positively. So the only thing that I can say is what I say every day when I do those. Find one positive thing in your day and run with it. No matter the strife that you're facing at that moment, find one good thing. And if that one good thing is knowing that you have your child and that's all that you're going to have, make that moment last. Make it your positivity. Make it be what you continue to forge your positivity with every day. Life is possible after domestic violence. You are not screwed up. You are not a forever victim. You are not worthless. You are amazing, phenomenal. And whether they told you that for 20 years, I'm telling you they're wrong. So take that negativity and turn it into something positive. You know, domestic violence doesn't have to ruin the rest of your life. There is a good life after domestic violence. I know, because I'm a totally different person than who I was 20 years ago.
Absolutely. Thank you. Gabby, are you back, baby?
She is.
Listen, this is how this
is live broadcast.
This is live broadcast, and you guys are all frozen on my end. I just hear you. Thank God for the gift of sound. Okay.
I can see everybody. She's there. I think she needs to unmute herself.
Okay, Gabby, can you take yourself off mute and share your final words? Or Ash?
There you go, Gabby. Oh, you just muted yourself again. You were unmuted. I don't know what happened.
We are live.
Press it one more time, Mama. Try one more time, Gabby.
Oh, let me type, maybe.
Go ahead. Check now. Wow.
It's not letting me.
Shout out to my Wi-Fi. Is it my Wi-Fi? Is it my fault?
I don't know, but I see everybody on the screen clearly. Mm-hmm.
All right. So I apologize for that, guys. I apologize for the technical difficulties. But, you know, just to piggyback off of what these two amazing women said, and to acknowledge everybody that's on the call, I think you have here a great example of what life may look like after domestic violence. You know, you see, you see the life and the legacy that Christina is now able to have and live because of what she went through. You see how, you know, mature and strong and
I think we lost your mama.
Yeah, I think it's definitely the Wi-Fi, but I'll just finish for her. I'll assume that I just want to thank everyone for being here. I cannot see any participants or the chat or anything, so I'll go back and watch that and read those comments. But thank you for listening to this. Definitely reach out to Christina, Love Shouldn't Hurt hotline, any of us if you know us personally and want to reach out and have a conversation. But we love you and we're here, and hopefully she has this again with some new guests to share their story, because everyone has a different story, and it looks I'm sure Christina can attest to this, it looks different. So
hey, everyone's back.
Hey. All right. So again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. I still cannot see you guys. Okay. All I see is black screens on my end, but I know how beautiful and powerful and just amazing you all are. And again, I want to acknowledge you all for being on tonight. We'll drop some links in the comment section of this show's broadcast. And we want to remind you that you are totally worth being loved, being admired, being cherished, being valued. You totally are. And so as we continue to promote women empowerment and self-love, we want to remind you that you are worth it, and we want to celebrate you getting out and not have to see you, unfortunately, you know, in one of these situations where we don't have you here any longer. So we love you guys. Thanks for watching. Please share, share, share. Everybody who is tuned in, please share, share, share. And again, we'll give you all the links that you need for how to find us in the future. Have an amazing night, guys. Bye.
Thank you.
Good
Bye.
night.
Good
Bye.
night.
Thank you.